Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Satsang. I am so glad you're all here. It is a delight to be with you. I'm setting things up here so I can. Hello, everyone. I can see everyone. Hello, hello. Turn off the sound on YouTube, and very good. So good to be here after a 2-week hiatus while I moved. So welcome. And as we're waiting for people to join, please type in, say hi in the chat. Tell me where you're from. It's really always fun for me to see the people around the world who are listening in, who are taking this time on their Sunday afternoon. Well, for me, it's just Sunday afternoon. For the East Coast, it's later Sunday afternoon. It's the evening. It's even the middle of the night some places. But thank you all for coming in and joining. By all means, say hi. Very good, Dr. Damien, hi GP. Motorcyclist, hi from Holland. You've got the sunshine in your face. Thank you. Remington says hi GP. Hi Remington, my man in Detroit. Wonderful to be here. As many of you may have recognized, I wasn't here. I didn't do Satsang for 2 weeks in a row, and so it was kind of a dry spell there for me. But I was moving. I'm now officially, as of yesterday, I'm officially in Seattle, which is where I'm going to be making my home, at least for the near term. I've kind of given up the idea of planning my life that perfectly. It never seems to have worked. So I'm just really pleased that I feel very fortunate in that what I do, I can do from pretty much anywhere. But I was looking for a place to settle in a bit, do more live events. I have now somebody helping me organize live events, and we'll see what we come up with for you. So let's see who else we got here. We got Terry Shirley, hi from North Carolina. Barbara is from Sandpoint, Idaho. Hi, Barbara. Dr. Damien is from Ohio in the US. Barbara is from Sweden. Eric Munn, AGP from Albuquerque. Courtney just moved back. Yes, indeed. I knew she had. That's really good. That's right. She was planning on, just packing up all the stuff. So she's finally back. So good to have you here, Eric. And we need to connect because I'd love to do some satsangs and events in Albuquerque down in New Mexico. That would be really wonderful. Patricia is here from Austin, Texas. She even has a little accent when she speaks. Eric says, congrats on your move. Enjoy. Thank you. Yeah, it was the right time and the right place for me to head out from New York. River of Wellness says, hi, GP. It's good that you are back. Missed you the past 2 weeks. You light up my Sunday. Much love, Julie in the UK. Thank you, Julie. Mastra said, Nida Ishmael, hi from Iraq. Hi, Mustafa. Did I say that correct? Mustafa? That should say so good. It's okay, River of Wellness. Chrissy says, hi, G. Hope you are well. Lovely to have Satsang again from New Zealand. Wonderful. So glad you're all here. What I wanted to open with as Satsang began was simply a reminder that Satsang, the real seeking of truth, the real discovery of truth is not knowledge. It is not something that It's not acquired information. Acquired information is useful, very useful. I have a lot of it. So anyways, listen to me go on about stories and talk about all sorts of different things. I have a lot of information, but the information that I've acquired is only served to help me be a better teacher, to make more pointers, because the ultimate attainment, which can't even really be called an attainment because it's a self-discovery, is recognizing the truth of your nature, and that it has always been that way. Buddha was once asked if he had attained the great enlightenment, and he said, I cannot say that I have attained great enlightenment because I have attained great enlightenment. Now, for the average mind kind of goes with that. What in the world do you do with something like that? I cannot say that I attained because I've attained. But that's the bewildering paradox of genuine spirituality. We are so used to identifying ourselves with the flow of thoughts, which we call the mind, or the sensations in the body. We're so used to identifying ourselves with a form that the idea of a formless being, of things both existing and not existing simultaneously, is completely and totally bewildering to us. Not because it's bewildering, but because we have no intellectual or conceptual place to put true information. So what do? In Zen they say you cannot put tea into a cup that's already full. You have to empty it. The process of genuine spiritual awakening is a constant shedding of that which is not true. In Zen they would say there's no need to attain enlightenment. Just give up your false opinions. Just give up opinions in general, because every perspective we adopt is only relative. The misery and suffering that is going on in the world is because we have mistaken that which is simply a cultural expression of truth to be the truth. And all of the major religions of the world are guilty of doing that. Probably the one that's the least guilty of it is Buddhism. And of course, Zen Buddhism is exactly the opposite. It's the two-edged sword that cuts right to the quick. Anytime you take a position, you have frozen yourself. You have become, you've literally frozen yourself in time. As I've mentioned before, the word dukkha in Sanskrit means, which is what has been interpreted. That's the Sanskrit word that was interpreted in the Buddhist text as suffering. And what it means is it refers to the hub of a wheel that's gotten out of true. And so the wheel either can't turn at all or turns with great difficulty. Interestingly enough, the word chakra means wheel. So we're talking about stuck energy. Stuckness equals suffering. And where do we get stuck? In our opinions. We get stuck in our perspective. We get stuck in our idea of what is true. And it's comfortable. It's comforting. We naturally are drawn to wanting to have a sense of a point of reference. That, well, this is true, therefore that's false. But if we really want to become spiritually mature, spiritually awake, we have to realize that all perspectives are wrong. All perspectives are right when you're in them, but none of them are the absolute truth. Joseph Campbell used to point that out all the time to try to distinguish between the cultural manifestation of a truth and the cultural rules that just give stability to a society and the truth. And the big mistake that human beings make is that the cultural expression of the truth and the cultural rules that help a culture, a society, an organization be stable are mistaken for an absolute. And that's when we go to war with each other. That's when we develop We create ridiculous boundaries. We create racism. We create nationalism. We create sexism and misogyny. All of that results from thinking that a position that you've taken is actually the truth, and it isn't. Now, this is difficult for us only because our natural tendency as human beings is to seek stability, to seek consistency, to seek a stable place, a point of reference. And I'm not saying we should throw it to the wind. I mean, if you throw it completely to the wind, you end up in Section 8 housing, and they have to, keep you drugged up because you can't function. The problem isn't that we decide to have conventions. I think it's a good idea that we all stop at red lights. I think it's a really great idea. And it certainly doesn't impinge on my spiritual freedom to do that. But if we think there's something inherent about a red light that means you're supposed to stop, that it's inherent in the light and not just a convention that we've agreed on, a convention that we can change anytime it doesn't work, if we don't understand that, then we are really stuck and are capable of the most horrible atrocities against one another, defending something that is simply a transient point of view. That's why empires fall. Empires don't have to fall. They fall because they get stuck. If they don't want to fall, all they have to do is be flexible. Stop being an empire. All an empire is somebody who tries to impose their will through force on somebody else, usually for purposes of greed. And the current empire in the world is the United States. And all it's doing is trying to export its version of economics to the world. But I digress. The point is that there's a underlying view that is regarded to be an absolute truth rather than simply being a cultural convention. If you can see through it, you can recognize that you are free to choose. This isn't nihilism. It's not chaos. It's not anarchy. We throw all the rules to the wind. No, we decide which rules work and which don't. And we have some, and it isn't really working for everybody. Right? That's kind of one of the rules. Underlying value, it's got to work for all humans and not just a handful of them. And it isn't, oh, okay, well, we change it because we can, because there's no attachment then to anything. I hope this is eyes are. I just read a little comment here. He is so mental. Eyes are telling. Ava, you saying that I'm mental, that I'm not speaking from the heart? Please clarify that. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Just kind of caught my eye. So what I'm inviting you to do is to step into a place that isn't mental, a place that clearly sees that every perspective you adopt is temporary and transient, and that the real freedom is discovered when you recognize that you are not beholden to or attached to any of them. Which doesn't mean you fall into nihilism, which the Buddha was accused of countless times, but instead you find this perfect middle way that easily moves from one position to another as needed by the demands of the day, needed by the demands of this moment. It provides the ultimate freedom that we're all seeking. Because the freedom is not in any idea, it's not in any concept, it's not in any set of values. I have no doubt that humanity could agree on a fundamental, a human Bill of Rights that would pretty much work for all of us, and could implement it really quite readily. We have everything we need to do it, just the will to do it. A few comments here. Let's see. Eli says, I used to live in Seattle on Whidbey Island. Beautiful place. You check it out sometime. Double Bluff is my favorite place. Thank you. Eva W says, he is so mental. Eyes are telling me. Okay. Eli says, I saw that shit when I was high, and in my mind realm, I was going through my subconscious and myself stuck in many different realities. And I had to accept myself because that was an aspect of me in different realities. And then I felt like a bomb of bliss being thrown at me and exploding all over my body. Oh, beautiful. Yes. Well, that is the essence of the shamanic journey. Whether it goes through psychedelics or meditation or whatever way in which that happens, the essential insight is where we see how we have simply attached to the sense of identity, and it's not really who we are, and therefore we keep ourselves stuck in these patterns, stuck in these loops. We keep ourselves there simply by holding on to something without the willingness to question the assumption. And the willingness to question the assumption is so liberating. It does just send this wave of bliss through your body. Thank you, Eli. Eric says, oh, definitely know about taking a position. And I am now announcing that I'm not too sure about what I just proclaimed. Whoops. Very good. Very, very good. Yeah, it's not weakness. I take very strong positions against violence, against economic inequality, against exploitation, against victimization. I take very strong stands against that. I think there are some fundamental human conventions that we can't abandon, and I won't. So this is not, Gandhi was totally nonviolent, but he was very clear. He was a very awakened being. He was very, very clear about exactly what what genuine human values should be. And really, that's what the current struggle in the world is. What are we going to value? Are we going to value money and profit over human capital? We calling human capital, isn't that horrible? Slip on that. For human beings, rather than making them human capital or consumers. Like Krishnamurti wrote about this in the 30s. I mean, really way back there. He wrote about exactly this. I mean, the seeds of this have been developing for a while. Pam Griffiths, hi GP from Norfolk, UK. Hi. Eli asks, if we sit with the attention on the oneness, our body naturally remembers how to be free. Yes, that's absolutely true. We don't have to learn how to be free. We already know it's inherent in us. We have to let go of the ideas of ourselves that aren't free. You are free. This is the cosmic joke. You are free. What we're letting go of isn't freedom. We're not acquiring freedom. We are simply letting go of the notion that we're not free. And that sends a message of liberation. And it's a message that goes right to the heart. I say that, and everybody here knows it's true. Not because I have to convince you, but something inside just says, yeah, it's true. Let's see, hold on. I think I missed something. Ib Jacobson. Ib from Denmark. Hi, Ib. So good to have you here. Errold, Kala, hi GP. How do the 4 stages of awakening described in the Buddhist sutras, Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arhat, relate to direct seeing? In Theravada, one must go through each stage before awakening. This is a really great subject. I could do an entire class just on that subject. In fact, I did do a class, and I did a 3-day workshop in Canada called From Delusion to Awakening. And I never want to say to somebody that there are no steps to be taken. There are those that are their approach on Advaita that no steps, no person, no awakening, no nothing. All of which is actually true, but it tends to be beyond the grasp of most people. The ultimate seeing is that you will see that there's never been anyone who didn't see, that all of the steps that you went through were all part of the dream. Yet that doesn't mean that you don't have to go through them. It doesn't mean that somehow they're wrong. The thing about Buddhism that is so beautiful, the reason I regard the Buddha as the greatest teacher of all time, is simply because he had this unbelievable capacity to create entire systems of thoughts and structures of teaching spontaneously to fit perfectly the audience that he was speaking to. And as a result, a lot of what he laid down and practices that he would lay down for some got interpreted as being the practices for everyone. If you study the Buddhist sutras enough, and I'm far from a scholar at it, right? I am a novice who just really gets off on reading them. And you study the Heart Sutra, which is a breakdown really of exactly the approach that you're talking about. It shows that the ultimate is the prajnaparamita, which is the wisdom, the spontaneous arising of the wisdom that, the prajnaparamita, which is the womb of all Buddhas, the seeing that there's nothing but mind, and that even the teaching is empty, that it is provisional, that it is not permanent, was not meant to be permanent. Even if it lasts 5,000 years, it is still temporary. This is such a powerful and a significant thing to grasp, that all teachings are temporary. They are to take you to the next level, and ultimately out of all levels where you see there's no need to teach. But the arhat, as you mentioned, the arhat, which is the highest achievement of Hinayana yoga, is one who is seeking nirvana, the ultimate dissolution of the self. That has its expression in modern Neo-Advaita teachers. There is nobody there. There's nothing to do, right? And again, it's true. And the arhat was that ideal. But the ideal of Mahayana Buddhism, which is the Buddhism that is the closest to the heart of the Buddha itself, which is clearly laid out in the Lankavatara Sutra, which is probably the most underrated and most significant of all the sutras I've ever read. I'm reading it now for the 6th time. I just keep getting more and more from it. That the hero, the ultimate of the Mahayana path, is the Bodhisattva, not the Arhat, not the attainment of nirvana, which is the dissolution of the self, but of enlightenment, which is the middle way, which is the flowing between positions, which the emptiness, which is no one in particular, but never ceases, never lets go of letting the manifestation occur. And so the Bodhisattva isn't trying to end this. Bodhisattva is, the vow of the Bodhisattva is to alleviate suffering for all beings. That's the highest ideal in Buddhism. And the attainment of nirvana and the great enlightenment is only a step on the way to that. When you go up the mountain for yourself, you come down the mountain for others. I don't know how much I can go into. I could go on about this subject all day. And when I do the retreat again next year, it's going to be similar. I'm not sure it's going to have the same name. I invite you all to come. Because I really talk about the twofold path. And there is a path until you don't need a path anymore. When somebody says, no teachers, no path, no nothing, all true. And when you don't need them anymore, then it will be true for you. It will be the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, and not just an attempt to get rid of a false sense of self. You let the false sense of self exist until it simply exhausts itself. That word nirvana is a beautiful word because that's what it means. It means to cease to be. It means to be extinguished. And the metaphor they use is a match that's burning, or a candle that just simply exhausts itself. Poof, there's nothing left to burn, and it just goes away. It isn't an attempt to blow the candle out. It simply exhausts itself. And as a result, the full attainment, for lack of a better word, of Buddhahood is realized. And that's an important word. It's realized. It's not attained. You simply realize that this is what you have always been. And you find that the one who has realized that has always known it. That the one who appears to have been going through stages and has eventually attained the enlightenment has itself been part of the dream that you, the real you, wake up from. If this is a dream, folks, who's dreaming? It's not the guy in the dream. As Muji says, the one who starts the inquiry does not finish the inquiry, but is finished by the inquiry. And in the texts of Knowing Yourself by Balyani, I think it's 12th century Sufi, I may have the dates wrong, Sufi master, said, no one knows him but himself. No one sees him but himself. No one reaches him but himself. He knows himself through himself. He reaches himself by means of himself. No one knows him but he. It's beautiful. It is the one awakening to itself. And you are not, the you have identified yourself to be are not that. That you does not awaken. The first thing Buddha said to anyone after his enlightenment is somebody seeing the glowing guy asked him, who are you? And he said, I am the Buddha, the awakened one. He wasn't a awakened one. He was the one that had awakened. Can you see the difference? So, I hope that helps, Erald. To go in there, every path is right for you for as long as it's right for you. And really, that's where it goes. And again, it's like I was saying at the beginning about, clinging to a position. All teachings will eventually exhaust themselves and dissolve into the ultimate prajna paramita, which is the wisdom that takes you to the other side, which is the wisdom that is totally beyond. Popcorn machine. Right, that's right. Maskeen. Hi, G from Sweden. Hi. Jim Whalen. Isn't the belief that things should be different than they are just another made-up concept? Yes. Yes, it is. And matter of fact, it's the primary source of suffering. If everything's okay the way it is, then you realize everything just, all of our grasping and avoiding and resisting and pushing and grabbing and attachments simply dissolve. Now, life doesn't stop when that happens. Life doesn't stop when our attachment to things dissolves, when our resistance to life. We let life flow. Desire's still there. Things come, you do things. Things come into your life that go out of your life. We have relationships, we have fun, we enjoy. But we're not attached to anything. We see life as events, things that are constantly coming and going. Just the idea. The only thing that introduces suffering into this mix is this idea that things should be different than they are. The moment that you believe that, this moment becomes a problem and you begin to suffer. That thought's not there. There is no suffering. Life continues. Life continues beautifully. Flowers still grow. People still talk on YouTube. You'll still have all the other things going on in your life. You'll still continue just like before, except without suffering, because you will no longer have any argument with life as it is. You'll simply let it be as it is. And the result of that, as that the veil of, of, uh, of resistance begins to fall from your eyes, you will see things differently. The world will look different. The world will be different. It will be more beautiful, more vivid, more alive, more concrete, simply because you're no longer looking at this moment as a stepping stone to the next. This moment now is just full, pregnant with life and vitality and wonder and uniqueness and beauty and potency. And it's all here right now. We just don't see it because somehow we've gotten this idea that it should be different. It doesn't, it shouldn't. It's exactly right, just the way it is. Everything is happening just the way it's supposed to. How do I know it's happening the way it's supposed to? Because it's happening. As Nisargadatta says so brilliantly, destiny is what happens. Thank you, Joe. Life is a sketch. Hello, life is a sketch. Hiron, hello, Hiron. I'm finally saying your name correctly after all this time. Hi, GP. Can you verify the occurrence of past lives from own experience? It seems impossible. And how does that work with the growing population? The literal truth of a past life, I think, is a useless thing to try to pursue. For the most part, it's impossible to know for sure. There have been instances that I have heard of where, you know, people vividly remembered certain things, and they went back to, you know, a town that they remembered, and, you know, a little kid recognizing things and knowing where things were and being able to give directions. I've had the experience of meeting what appeared to be my own mother reincarnated at 2 years old. My crazy mother was no longer crazy. She was just delightful, who literally called me her son, mi hijo, because she only spoke Spanish. I've had experiences doing interreconciliation with, you know, processing with people. We've just had several of them happen during the facilitator training. I like to look at it like this. Whether it happened literally, which it might have, I'm not denying that, or it was the energy system producing a metaphor or an image or something to give expression to some kind of deep trauma that was going on, doesn't matter. As long as you receive the information and honor it, the reason that it's coming to the surface in order to heal and expand and finally dissolve the traumatic energy is the same. I will ask it sometimes, is this life or a past one? And say, this is a past one. Sometimes I'll just have a feeling that the trauma that I'm seeing emerge in somebody I'm working with is not from this life, right? That's all I need to know, right? Because all I'm here to do from the point of view of healing, and Hiron is a brand new certified facilitator of interreconciliation. The only thing I need to know is that the truthfulness of the energy. And if it wants to create this bubble to give expression to whatever it is that it's trying to discharge, more power to it. It's not up to me to decide whether it's legitimate or not. I don't really think it's important. I just have not found, knowing whether absolutely true, whether it really happened or not in the past, has contributed nothing to the process of healing, and that's all I care about. I'm a true Buddhist in that sense, that the only thing I'm interested in is the alleviation of suffering. I'm not interested in making some kind of point, which is exactly the perspective that the Buddha took. If it didn't have to do with alleviating suffering, it wasn't important. The process by which we let this inner information express itself it does alleviate suffering. Matter of fact, it heals on the deepest level. That's all that matters. So it's kind of an, your other question about how does that work with a growing population? I don't know. Bugs, bugs have evolved to the point where they can be born as a human. We have such a narrow view of the world. We have such a small view of the world. If people have heard me speak about reincarnation and the like, I take a very, very different point of view on it. And that is, see, our view is, we have a very materialistic view. Even though everybody here is very spiritual, we still have a very materialistic view. We see the material universe as an absolute, as the fact. So the earth is here. It's been here for all this time. It's going to be here for a long time. And you and I are being born in and out of it. So the earth is the constant, and my births are the variable that's coming and going, right? And yeah, it's going to change the population. I don't actually see it that way. I see you, consciousness, as the unchanging factor, and that the earth comes and goes. Your experience of being born is like your own little private dream. And it is all these people and all these things that are going on. The earth is not a constant. It's you who's a constant. So reincarnation is not you being born into the earth. It's a new earth being born in you. Completely 180 from the normal perspective on it. So that the entire construct of your experience is completely a projection of the mind. That is the essential teaching of the Lankavatara Sutra, which for those of you who feel inclined, you can get it on Kindle. There's not many translations of it. The one I'm reading is by Red Pine, who I highly recommend. Pretty much, he's my guy when it comes to the translation of Buddhist texts. And so when you look at it that way, you don't see yourself as coming and going. You see yourself as the constant, which consciousness is. And this is a completely spiritual point of view, because as long as the earth is there as this thing that we're born in and out of, that is a materialistic view. That something exists inherently outside of consciousness. And if you examine that closely, you'll find that that's simply not, it's not reasonable, it's not rational, it's not even possible. Does that answer your question, Haroon? Yeah, it's a very deep thing to ponder, and thank you for bringing it up. Oh, a very long name, German or Austrian. There's ein Faser im Gewid des Lebens. Oh boy, sorry. Hi, GP. What's your point on psychedelics? I had my awakening on a psychedelic 3 years ago. Sometimes the thought comes that I was not ready for it and manipulate the natural process. Any comment? Yes. I've seen, look, there's a lot of stuff going on in psychedelics right now. I know a lot of people that are involved in it. A good friend of mine is a shaman trained by Native Americans. I think it is a legitimate opening experience. I think that the earth has provided us plants, plants for healing illnesses, sunburns, for curing stuff with inside us. Why not a plant that's an anti-inflammatory for our very inflamed ego? I cannot find anything wrong with it. But like any kind of deep, intense experience, without proper preparation, it's going to be short-lived or maybe even scary. I would recommend, before people do something like that, to have a genuine interaction, to have a meditation practice. My approach to spirituality is inner reconciliation. Some kind of a conceptual framework. Matter of fact, there's actually some luminaries within the Buddhist community who are now doing, I think, ayahuasca journeys as part of a meditation program, simply because it gives the opportunity for people to have the experience of the dissolution of the self in a safe setting, within the context of the Buddhist tradition, which is extremely strong and preparatory, but have an experience that many people will never have in their life. That they're just kind of making progress little by little. And so some luminaries within Buddhism are doing this. So it's not completely out there. But as always, I highly, highly recommend that there is an emotional, psychological, and spiritual preparation for such things. And set and setting they talk about in those things is absolutely critical. I do not understand how somebody could do a psychedelic and go to a rave. There's a project that goes to various festivals like Burning Man and the like, that calls the Soft Landing Tent. They're trained by a group called the Zendo Project, which trains people, or people who are clergy or therapists, or people who are trained to work with people who are having a bad trip, so that we can come someplace and they can work with them to go through, because the context is completely off, right? And unfortunately, that's what happens in the West. I mean, you've got the plant medicines developed over thousands of years. They're integrated into the community. They were in the hands of the shamans and the medicine men and women, and therefore they were understood. They had a purpose. It was integrated into an entire context. Well, we don't have that context in the West, and it's what's sorely lacking. So I really encourage people to find. There are no shortcuts, okay? There are no shortcuts except the deepest inquiry, meditation, inner reconciliation, to emotionally and psychologically and spiritually prepare yourself. And you may prepare to the point where you don't even need it. It's medicine, okay? It's not supposed to be a way of life. It's a medicine. Medicines aren't taken forever, right? The drug companies would like you to, but that's not what they're for. They're to assist, not even to commandeer or to replace, to assist in the road back to full spiritual health. So yes, like there are people who experience the Kundalini awakening and they are not ready for it. I've known people whose lives have been devastated by it and been very, very difficult. Worked with some, very difficult to get them back. As on one hand, they're holding on to that peak experience, and at the same time, they've got a nervous system that simply does not know how to process it. They're resistant, they're uptight, they simply weren't ready for it. And I think exactly the same thing is true of plant medicine. You have to become ready for those things, and not everybody needs it. Even Terence McKenna, who was one of the heroes, one of the great psychonauts who was really, really promoted, says twice a year. That's it. That's all you need to do. So, does that help? Does that answer the question? I'm not going to try again to butcher your name. Give me a nickname I could call you. That would really be great. Popcorn machine. Why do all teachers sit next to a vase of flowers? Because they're pretty. I've sat next to other stuff as well, but otherwise I've just got this blank. Here, I'll show you why. Here, look. Otherwise I've got this blank wall, right? I mean, it's kind of weird looking, isn't it? So that's fine. So the flowers are pretty, and otherwise there's this blank wall. But this is a new place I'll be doing satsang from for a while till I find another home for it, hopefully a studio somewhere that I can do it. So a place maybe even where I can have people come in live. So if that answers your question, Popcorn Machine. Sarah Sands, hi, hello, my love. So good to have you here. And Kaufman finally made it. Hi there. And Sarah's from France, of course, yes. Life is a sketch. What are your thoughts on third eye, pineal gland? Is it important for awakening? again, I never want to criticize any teaching, but here's my perspective. The materialistic approach, and it has infected spirituality at the most fundamental level. This idea that consciousness is a product of the brain means that we're doing all sorts of things with the brain in order to liberate consciousness. Well, folks, if consciousness is a function of the brain, consciousness ends with the brain. Done. End of story. It also has no consistency. It is not trustworthy. You do not exist. There's nothing to you. You have no existence whatsoever. Materialism is nihilism. There's no way around it. Now, consciousness, regarded as being fundamental rather than matter, we see that matter is not really a thing. It's just a concept. And that the form that we experience, like the flowers that all teachers sit next to, that they are actually made of consciousness and are the expression of consciousness. So the third eye, the pineal gland, the brain, the synapse, every structure is actually a manifestation of consciousness, that consciousness is the constant, and that the form that consciousness assumes, the various forms that come and go within it, is the transient. Whereas the material universe says matter, energy is the fundamental, and that consciousness comes and goes, and consciousness is nothing more than an emergence from the complexity of matter. And I just completely disagree with that approach. So if you manipulate, the pineal gland may represent an aspect of consciousness, but it does not control consciousness. Looking for consciousness in the body is like looking for the singer in the radio. They're not there. It's not there. The consciousness influences it, but really not the other way around. It's only our beliefs about the pineal gland and the brain and the neurology, our beliefs about that do affect our experience, but there's nothing inherent in anything objective. This is what Buddha meant when he was talking about no self. There's no self in objects. No object has inherent existence. It has no inherent characteristics. All the qualities that you experience of every structure, whether it be a mountain or it be a tiny little complex structure in the brain, none of those things have an inherent existence. They are all a projection of the mind. Just like these flowers, the beauty of these flowers, the color, we say, oh, it's a yellow flower, it's a red flower, it's a purple flower, it's a green leaf. It's not. This is not yellow. The flower is not yellow. Light is yellow. The light that is reflected off of it that we are picking up is yellow. Color is an attribute of light, not of the flower. Even so, everything you experience, including your pineal gland and third eye and all of that, possesses no characteristics whatsoever. It is a reflection of consciousness. Consciousness is what possesses all attributes. And as a result, everything reflects this beauty, this warmth. It's like the sun, like the moon. The moon is absolutely beautiful. We stand and we're in awe of it at night. We fall in love to it. We write poetry to it. We worship it, right? Wolves howl at it. It has no light. Without the sun, it's a dark, dead ball. But with the sun, it's this glorious, romantic. It's just incredible. It can just illuminate with the most beautiful hue the entire earth. So we simply need to come back to ourselves. Consciousness is our nature, and everything you experience is nothing but a reflection of consciousness. When that is understood, consciousness is awake. When it's not understood, consciousness is asleep. Thinking that what it is experiencing exists separate from it. And all these qualities somehow belong to the object when they don't. That's the big delusion. And that is the illusion that we are to wake up from. Does that answer your question? So no, it's not important for awakening. The third eye, the pineal gland, they're not important for awakening. Awakening is the recognition of your true nature. That's it, nothing more. Recognition of Buddha nature. Or to put it the way the Lankavatara puts it, the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. And Buddha knowledge is the wisdom body. Wisdom, true knowing itself is your body, true knowing and consciousness. Sat, Chit, and Ananda are one. Being and knowing are actually the nature of being. And the fruit of that is Ananda, bliss, happiness. Mauro Cyclist. There are many pointers to truth. A teacher once said to take one pointer and follow it through to the end. Would you agree? For the most part, yeah. If it's a true teaching and it's a true teacher and it's a genuine pointer, then probably is the case. What I do find is people kind of jump from teacher to teaching too quickly. They don't stick with it long enough. They really don't invest in it. And other times I see people sticking with teaching that simply isn't working for them. I think you should truly invest your heart in a particular pointer or a particular practice, completely wholeheartedly, but recognizing that it's a pointer and that all teaching is provisional and that all teaching is empty of self and will eventually dissolve into the pure and perfect wisdom. This is the deep meaning of the Heart Sutra. All teaching, including Buddha's teaching, is temporary. So whatever your practice is, don't think it's the absolute. If it takes you right up to the cliff and pushes you off into the abyss of awakening, you don't need it anymore. You're done with it, right? So even if it does take you the entire distance, at that moment, it's over. You don't take it with you. Buddha said, you take a boat to the other side. When you get to the side, you don't pick the boat up and carry it around. You're over there. You're done. You don't need it any longer. All teaching is like that. When you finally get to the ultimate prajna paramita, which is the wisdom that has gone beyond. So does that answer your question, Motorcyclist? Oh, I have this here. I forgot that I had this. Eric, scrolling too fast, come back. Where'd you go? Oh, there we go. Erald, did I say that right? That was great. Thank you, GP. In the Bhaya Sutra, the Buddha said, in the healing there is hearing, in the seeing, or in the hearing there is hearing, in the seeing there is seeing, etc. You say this is your direct experience now? Well, I certainly do not claim to be a Buddha. What I say is that I am to describe it in levels, I am perpetually aware of the non-dual wisdom. I am also aware, and vigilantly so, of the habitual patterns of the mind that are a constant invitation to fall back into the ego. So I sit in this place of vigilance, which Papaji and Muji and others have said, that's what you do. That's where you are. So the understanding is always available, right? And I'm constantly aware of the habits of the nervous system, which are still very, very active. I think that's probably the most honest way to express it. I don't want to claim, that I'm walking on water. I've just found that the wisdom needed for every moment, the answer to every question, just happens. And there's feelings within the body, there's sensations, I mean, it's really why I created Inner Reconciliation, to be able to bring everybody to the understanding that to awaken to your true nature is not the end of the false sense of self. There's momentum to it, there's energy to it. For some, it is. I mean, it's very rare. It's very rare that that happens. But it's still very active, and it can still go on for a while. That's why it's a twofold path. There's the inquiry, and then there is the allowing. There's the path of Vedanta and the path of Tantra, the yoga of compassion and the yoga of wisdom. Both sides are needed until the insight, the essential insight, sinks completely into the nervous system, and it's lived as well as known. And my experience and the experience I've seen in countless number of people is that's exactly the way it happens. And I've seen many people who have acquired deep wisdom still feeling a lot of suffering and challenging because they don't understand that the habitual patterns of the mind don't simply disappear. This is one of the reasons why in Buddhist teachings you will find multiple levels. I mean, there's 10 stages to the Bodhisattva path. It's not that everybody has to go through those stages. It's just to indicate that it's not just going to go like that. It didn't for the Buddha, right? It just isn't going to suddenly disappear, right? Oh, the heavens part, the Red Sea parts. And for every stage that you might be at, you will be there. It's covered. We got you covered, right? Even when a Zen teacher of mine referred to a thing he called the hazy moon enlightenment, which I thought was just a beautiful phrase, right? Yes, it's clear there's the moon. I can see the moon. I can see it all the time. There's this haze still going on. The less deal we make of that, and the more our attention, the less we turn that into a story that helps perpetuate the false sense of self, and the more we are really just rejoicing, delighting in the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, however tiny that might be, the easier the road gets. As Jesus said, you have faith, like this, a grain of mustard seed, which is a tiny little seed. You'll say to this, the mountain, be removed and cast in the sea, and it be so, and nothing will be impossible to you. So it isn't a matter of, so we need to, again, this moment is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Don't turn it into a stepping stone to the ultimate enlightenment, because that is just a projection of the mind. You are that now. Just abide there. That's actually what Atmavichara, the phrase that Ramana Maharshi used, it is sometimes called self-inquiry, sometimes called remembering, is also self-abiding. Simply abide as who you really are. And thoughts will come and say, oh, that's not true. Yeah, but you haven't got there yet. Well, I am there. Recognize the falsity of the thought. We don't need to believe those thoughts. Wu Sen said, if the village idiot calls you stupid, do you give it any credence? When the mind says, oh, you're not that, why do you believe it? You don't have to. And that's developing spiritual power, spiritual courage, spiritual authority. And I'm not in a hurry to relieve anybody from that. I'm not in a hurry for somebody to just, suddenly step into the bliss. I want strength. I want to inculcate a sense of power that is connected. That's the bodhisattva. It's not just, the bliss out somewhere, I'm letting it all go. It is connected, it is earthy, it is here, it is now. It is a willingness to get down in the mud with others who are suffering. To me, that's the highest calling. And so that's the one that I follow. So the seeing in the seeing, the hearing in the hearing, there is hearing. Yes, the eye does not see. Consciousness is sight. We do not see because we have eyes. We have eyes because we see. Consciousness is knowing. The knowing of yourself is your very being. See if you can take that in. Being is knowing. What is there of a thing except the knowing of it? We imagine that we are knowing something that exists separate from the knowing. The clarity in Buddhism is pristine. No, the knowing is the thing. The knowing and the thing are not two. Ponder that, because it will collapse the idea of a self and other. The knowing and the known. All there is of a thing is the knowing of it. And you are that knowing. So the knowing, the knower, and the known all simply fold into an indescribable one. Of course, you can't describe one because there's nothing to describe it in terms of. And that's all language is. Thank you, Harold. Yo, so what you said about suffering, isn't it the same in the belief that there should be more equality, etc.? Yes. Yes. We need to distinguish very clearly between convention and absolute truth. But we need, this is really important, we need to see that, yes, should inequality, God, how do I put this? This is so very, very subtle. You can get stuck in the absolute, you can get stuck in the relative. That's really kind of what the Arahat, which is the Hinayana ideal, is stuck in the absolute. What I consider the Neo-Advaita teachers are stuck in the absolute. I was stuck in the absolute. I know it for a fact. Several Zen teachers I know were stuck in the absolute. There's a beautiful, by absolute, I mean, it's like nothing, there is no equality, none of it exists, all projection of the mind, none of it's real, I'm not here, you're not here, no big deal, there is no suffering, which is true, right? And there is suffering. When you completely embrace both, you are truly non-dual. If it's one or the other, right, you are not non-dual. There's a beautiful koan from Suan San, a Korean Zen master, where he says, he picks up the Zen stick and he bangs it on the ground. And he says, stick and sound, same or different. If you tell me they're the same, I will hit you 30 times. If you tell me they're different, I will still hit you 30 times. Now, whack, stick and sound, same or different. It's very, very powerful. And the point he's making is absolutely clear. If you tell me, oh, it's all nothing, there's no suffering, there's no inequality, because none of it's real, none of it exists, I will hit you 30 times. You're stuck in the absolute. If it's, oh God, it's miserable, we got to do something about it, we got to, get rid of these guys, or you're stuck in the whack, you're stuck in the relative. Buddhism is this. It is quite capable of being present with both simultaneously. That is the Bodhisattva, right? You are not in the absolute, you are not in the relative. You bring this absolute light of pure knowing into the most horrific circumstances to do what? To bring out the best in what the circumstances can be. To bring out the highest human ideal. The highest human ideal, of course, would be equality and fairness and honesty and kindness and compassion. That's what compassion is. Compassion is the infinite, absolute truth known, lived as a human being. And as the Buddha said, the ordinary human being is the Buddha. You've ever seen the Zen ox herder pictures? That's the ultimate achievement, is he's back home with the ox. He goes off looking for the ox, which is enlightenment. He finally finds it. He just comes back home. He's just sitting at the window, looking out the window. The ordinariness, the humanness of it. It's not an attempt to get out of it. It's bringing this infinite light of true knowing to everyday, earthy, gritty human life. And that is what compassion is. So compassion isn't a set of behaviors. It's not an attitude. It is the wisdom of the ultimate lived as a human being. The word made flesh, heaven coming down to earth. the appearance, the avataric appearance. Does that answer the question for you, Jill? Yeah, you can't go one way or the other. If you go one way or the other, you are stuck. You're taking the position. The whatever position needs to be taken is one that appears in this moment. And it's transient, it's temporary, take it, it's gone. Right? You're not stuck in it. Doesn't mean you don't take them, but you take them wisely. They are just a beautiful outgrowth directly from the circumstances themselves, and they're not superimposed on it. That's the nature of true compassion and true wisdom. Does that help, my friend? Matt Sterling, hello from Sydney here. Oh, wow. Hello from Sydney. Love it. I've only been to Sydney once. Really would love to go back. Which, by the way, there was somebody who was on Satsang, Medina, I think was her, or Medina was her name. And she was talking about some live events. I'm in Seattle now. We don't know how to get in touch with you to see if you had something in mind. But, and in fact, anybody here who wants to organize some kind of, help me organize some event in your city, I'm happy to do it. If we can get enough people together, I'll come there personally. If not, I can do something over Skype. I've actually started talking to somebody in Adelaide, Australia, about doing a Skype. She's got a meetup group that on non-duality, and I offered to show up on Skype at one of their meetings on a Sunday morning, which would be Saturday night for me. So I offer that to anybody. You can just send an email to gplive@gpwalsh.com, and the person I'm working with will follow up and we'll get back. If you've already done that and I haven't really responded yet, it's because I haven't really been organized, but we're getting there. So, so by all means, I'm really very open to doing that. I really, really want to do more live stuff. One of the reasons I'm happy to be kind of settling in Seattle is because it's a very, very alive and spiritual community. And I'm going to be doing some events around here. So Irina, yes. I'm not even going to try her last name. Hi, GP. What about fear and doubts when they come up so strong? Is it possible to have those feelings from time to time and still manifest something we want? Absolutely. The thing that shuts down the active expression in your life of who you are is our beliefs about it. So we say, okay, oh, I'm having these doubts and these negative feelings and these fears, so I can't manifest. Well, the only reason you're not manifesting is because you believe the fear, the doubt, and the negative feelings are taking it away. They're not. They have nothing. They're just feelings. We project on those feelings a whole story, give them meaning, and then we suffer for the meaning that we give them. The meaning isn't in the feeling. Again, this is what the Buddha meant. It's a projection of mind. No feeling has any inherent meaning or purpose or anything. It's just a feeling. What we project upon that, an entire story. Oh, I had this bad thought. Bad things are going to happen to me. And then a bad thing will happen, and you think it's because you had the bad thought. It's because you believed that the bad thought was going to create it. That's it. That's how it works. It's incredibly subtle, but it's incredibly simple when you actually see it. It's our story about what we're experiencing and not the experience that creates the outcome that we either want or don't want. This is how it works. And it is so amazingly simple. You don't have to fear fear. You don't have to fear your feelings. You don't have to hold yourself tight in a knot to not have any doubts. Doubts come. They're natural. They're natural to the mind. You can't help it. That's the functioning of the mind. And the more afraid you are of it, the more empowered it gets, the more energy it gets. It gets fed with pain and fear and all of that stuff. Take the story away from it. It's just a feeling. That's it. I'll do exercises with people. A lot of my meditations, that's exactly what we do. Just kind of let the feeling be there. And you sit with it long enough and suddenly it's no big deal anymore. you begin to clearly discern what is just a feeling or a sensation or a line of thought that's running through your mind, and what is your story about it, the meaning that you've given it. Take away the meaning and no thought sticks. There's nothing for it to stick to. You've removed the Velcro, right? The same thing with emotion. Oh, I'm feeling fear. Something's, okay, just be with the fear. Just sit with the fear. No story. Don't give it any meaning. And just be with it and watch what happens. It won't last long. Things run through very, very quickly. Same thing with sensations. And that's the sum total of experience, by the way. Our emotions, our sensations, and our thoughts. That's all there is. That's the whole of your experience. It's very complicated and ideas about what this means. And forget it. All you're experiencing is a flow of thought, a flow of emotion, and a flow of sensation. That's all there is. Take the story away from it, and you find that life is just absolutely, brilliantly perfect, intelligent, benevolent, easy, effortless. It's only our thoughts about it that turn it into suffering. That's it. That's all you have to worry about. Yeah. So, and yes, they may come up very, very strongly. There's some deep things that we're afraid of. There's some very things that human beings are naturally afraid of. There's some feelings that we've fed with our story for a very long time. And when we begin to remove the story, the feeling is going to come up and say, hey, come on back here. It can perplex us a little bit. It's usually at times like this, I really recommend that you get a facilitator to help you, a coach, a teacher, to kind of bring yourself back. I think I'm going to be starting a regular meditation, weekly meditation thing. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but just so that for this, exactly this, to just be with what's happening. Let yourself be what's happening. Don't run away from it, and watch how quickly it begins to transform. This isn't hard, folks. We have been taught to fear it. And you know, when the whole law of attraction thing happened, it did not help. It did not add to the debate, because now it made everybody terrified of their negative thoughts. Right? There's nothing to be terrified of. It's only our fear of the thoughts, and that fear is artificial. It's illusory. The only fear we actually really have is, you know, when the lion's actually chasing you. Well, yeah, there's fear. That's for real, right? There are very few times when the fear you experience is real, which means there's a legitimate threat to you in the environment. Other than that, it is completely imaginary. And seeing through that gets you to a place where fear becomes a rarity. So hope that answers your question, Rena. Matt says, I can't ask my question in 200 characters as it's far too complex. Is it possible if I send you via email? Yeah, by all means. You can send that question to GP Live at gpwalsh.com as well. I'll do my best to get to them. Try to be as succinct in the question as you possibly can. Let me take a little more backstory to get there. As you said, it is complex. But try to not wrap too much. Try to get right to the heart of it. It will be very powerful if you do that. I sometimes get letters that go on for pages, and I just can't get to them. it's too much. I get too many. So Iran says. So I hope that answers your question on that. Iran says, thanks, GP. That was reassuring in a way. Oh, it's more like Yaroon. Oh, Roon, really? Ah, God. Yaroon. Well, now I've been thoroughly chastised. I will not forget again. Remington says, what is the Kundalini way? Oh, Kundalini, not Kundalini. It's Kun, K-U-N, Dalini. It's a release of energy. It's a particular form of yoga, particular tradition. It's that believes that enlightenment is the release of the energy throughout all the chakras, starting with the root, and it explodes all the way up to the crown chakra, and that's enlightenment. So that's what it. Yeah. And then when that happens, they call that the Kundalini awakening. And there are very powerful energetic things that they experience. my definition of awakening, that's not an awakening. It's a very intense experience, but it's not awakening. Awakening is not an experience. You don't experience the awakening, you are the awakening. So that's just a different perspective on it. So, YouTube University. It's an interesting name. Hi there, YouTube University. I like to do the psychedelics every season. So it's 4 times a year. Well, that's, yeah, good. I hope you're doing it with a real shaman or somebody who really knows their stuff. I've heard some shamans say that there are none. Well, there are some shamans in the United States. I don't know where you are, YouTube University. But there are no teachers of shamans in the United States. For that, you have to go somewhere else. And that is true. Although there is one I know who's down in New Mexico, who is the teacher of my friend. So there are some, but they're pretty much in the Native American community. Let's see. Pete Brar. Hello, GP. It's been a while. I've been off my socials. Good to see you again. Hello, Pete. Yes. Well, I'm not really very good about the socials. I have to force myself to check in because I have a private group of students, and I have people who want things. It's part of just being out there as a teacher. But I'm not particularly fond of that, especially considering all the stuff Facebook has been doing, their censoring, and they've turned out to be another part of the corporate state. Let's see, Himonk or Himonk Kumon. Gee, what's your opinion on the Kundalini yoga? Is it dangerous? Anything? Let's put it this way. I've had direct experience with people who've had a Kundalini awakening, and it has not been a healthy thing for them. Now, I do not regard that as awakening. Awakening does not bring suffering. It ends suffering. So if there's suffering that's happened, it's not an awakening. It was a premature release of energy within the body, that there was not an emotional preparation, or maybe even a physical preparation adequate for that to happen. It can happen. People, that's what a bad trip is on psychedelics. Something comes up that somebody is really not ready to handle because that veil has been pulled back before the person was ready. So preparation. You need good teachers, good training, patience. Don't be in a hurry. Allow this work to unfold naturally for you. To me, the highest teaching is the Prajnaparamita, and which can be through the higher Buddhist text, the Heart Sutra and the Lankavatara Sutra, and the direct path inquiry of like Muji, Babaji, Ramana. Those are the most direct path, and will prepare you. The beauty of them is they both prepare you and awaken you simultaneously. They take you through. It is to me the most perfect way to approach it. But that's me. But I also practice a little qigong, and I do some yoga, and I do different kinds of things. I try to take care of my body and the like. So it doesn't rule all of that kind of stuff out. I eat healthy. I don't eat any processed food. Very little in the way of no refined sugar, no meat. I've just chosen a lifestyle that is consistent. I think with the highest achievement. But I do recognize, sometimes when I just have to eat things that I don't normally eat. What people don't realize is that the original Buddhists were not vegetarian. They were vegetarian when they had a choice, but they just went out every day with their begging bowl and they ate whatever was given. That was the Buddhist approach. Whatever was offered is what you took. So it's very different. And I heard the Dalai Lama even say that. He'd meet sometimes because that was what was offered. And that's a higher ideal than that. That said, I think as far as the social, economic, environmental, that we should be. So those are the choices that I make. So it's not like this exclusive, narrow little place. It's just that I found that the Prajnaparamita teaching of Buddhism, which is a direct parallel to the direct inquiry, is the most direct and effective way to pierce through the veil. And as the veil is being pierced, you're simultaneously being prepared to live it, to embody it as a human being, and not merely try to transcend your humanness and go someplace else. I did do that for a while, so I know I can vouch vouch for the fact it doesn't work. Let's see. That German name is just too long. The name is German, translate to a fiber in the fabric of life. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Fiber, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, fiber. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. That cleared it up. Since that awakening 3 years ago, I stopped using psychedelics and got deeply involved in meditation to integrate the awakening, and it gets clearer and clearer. Perfect. That to me is yes, you use the medicine so you don't need the medicine anymore, as well it should be, right? Plant medicine is not the pharmaceutical industry that just wants to mask symptoms to keep you stuck there forever. Yes, deep meditation and inquiry practice is what is needed for it to thoroughly integrate. And some good solid teaching about the middle way, about life as a human being, and not simply trying to transcend this life, but to be thoroughly engaged in it. The word made flesh. I just love that. I love that term. Let's see, Eric. Flowers to reinforce the ever-blooming continuum. Thanks for the insight and knowledge on psychedelics. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. It's very, very important because it's getting increasingly popular. As a matter of fact, I understand if all goes, if somebody doesn't basically get a bug up their ass and try to, invoke family values and stop it, that MDMA as a recognized treatment for PTSD and other depression and other kinds of things to be administered in a clinical setting is supposed to get FDA approval within a year, which is a really big step. So there may be a setback, but I think there's a transformation that's taking place, or an integration of these kinds of plants, which will follow it shortly thereafter. Will follow it being removed from Schedule 1. Will be reduced down to a Schedule 2, maybe even a Schedule 3. So there's a very interesting trend that's taking place, and I just kind of think it's one of the ways in which consciousness is giving itself permission to expand. And I think it behooves us to have some good knowledge about it, to have some depth of understanding, and from my perspective, to recognize that it requires spiritual preparation and maturity. There's no shortcut, and this isn't about partying. This is about breaking down the barriers, the egoic barriers that have kept humanity prisoner for about 12,000 years. This kind of egoic intensity did not exist when we were basically hunter-gatherers wandering around the Serengeti. It's a relatively new phenomenon happening with the beginning of agriculture and the concept of ownership, which didn't really exist before. Very minute part, and it is just kind of exploded, really inflamed into the egoic mind that we experience today. And it's interesting because the whispering, suggestive snake in the Garden of Eden becomes the bloated red dragon in the sky in the book of Revelation. Very powerful, very powerful metaphor. Sorry, all of a sudden my mind went blank. Let's see, knowing, Matt, knowing that I am consciousness doesn't make it any less sad that one day this person I'm experiencing and the people it loves will no longer exist. Yes and no. But yes, there's a certain amount of grief that I think is absolutely necessary. It's an honoring, right? I mean, yes, there are people I know. I like GP. I'm enjoying the relationships that GP gets to have, but I know it's transient. But you know, yes, it always. But how many times has it already ended in your life? How many people from grade school you're really tight with, and they're not there in high school? It's like this is the nature of things. When you recognize that you are consciousness and that consciousness is one, you realize nothing ever gets lost. It is the one consciousness that's taking countless numbers of forms. As you fall into that, you recognize that you are the ocean and that the waves are utter delight, and all they do is come back to you. That nothing gets lost. There is no death. There is no birth. Nothing is lost or found. Everything is this constant appearing and reappearing of the one, and you are that one. And that's when grief ends for good. As it said in the Bible, that all the tears will be dried away. So I hope that answers your question. It's just we pass through a period, right? And it's really important because some people want to get spiritual and avoid grief. We must pass through this area where we allow ourselves to grieve, because that's how we recognize that something is important, right? And simultaneously, there's a deeper grief that happens as we begin to realize the impermanent nature of life itself. And then beyond that is this place where we kind of fall into the loving arms of pure consciousness, the womb, Prajnaparamita, the mother of all Buddhas, and recognize nothing's ever been lost. Nothing ever could get lost. That you are one with everything, and that the things that are appearing and disappearing are nothing more than manifestations of this one. And then that's the end of all grief for all time. YouTube. And love to Eva, who just joined. My love to Eva is the best. Oh, okay. Hi, Eva. Joanne, thanks. Yes, that helps. Robert Goldberg. Hi, greetings from Southern Nevada. Hi, Robert. Welcome. Austin Smith Kelly. Hello from, oh boy, Massapequa. Sorry. Massapequa, I think. Massapequa. I'm not really sure where that is. It sounds like it's either like, I don't know where that is. Haroon. Said it right this time. Perfect. I may send you a certificate. Thank you. YouTube. I'm doing it on my own. I am experienced. Oh, okay, cool. You know, that was the Terence McKenna approach. You know, by yourself in a dark room, in silence. If you are comfortable with yourself and spiritually mature, then by all means, YouTube University. I'm in Switzerland. Ah, wonderful. I haven't been there for 2 years. Yeah. Robert Goldberg. I've heard about the idea of the ego being bad for our growth. Can they coexist, and how would this happen? The ego is probably one of the most misunderstood things that there is. The ego is nothing but the thought of I. And that thought of I, believed to be myself, collects all sorts of other thoughts around it. And there's this entire self-portrait that gets created. very elaborate, very detailed, with memories and histories and associations, relationships, very complex. Right? But at the center of it is simply a thought. It's not actually who you are. If you believe that is who you are, it is a problem. Because now the limits of this self-portrait, and it is by definition limited. It was created in a limited environment in reaction to limitations being pressed on it. It developed a sense of self out of the limitation, just in a need to survive. So if you identify with that, you are going to feel, you, consciousness, which is infinite, are going to feel compressed, constrained, imprisoned, right? The moment you realize that form of thought, that flow of thoughts is not yourself, you become liberated from it. This now isn't a problem. Now it's just a functioning of life, right? I don't go as nobody to the grocery store, right? I have a name on my driver's license, right? Even though that's not actually who I am, I have that name on my, it is simply a convention. It is a way of functioning in the world. I'm GP here on YouTube, right? But that's not really who I am. Of course not. But it is just a convention. It's a particular way this body-mind happens to function. A male, Caucasian, of Irish descent, that's this age and born in this place, that speaks English and blah, 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 right? Nothing wrong. There's no problem with that if I don't believe that's who I am. If I believe I'm who I am, that I'm stuck there. If I don't believe that's who I am, I'm not stuck there. Which not only liberates me as consciousness, it liberates the egoic sense of self. It liberates that sense of self. In a sense, you could say that the ego doesn't actually happen. It's just a sense of self. When it is believed, the ego emerges. But I just use the word ego as simply the sense of I. It's the sense of I that is just a thought and not what you actually are. So knowing that the ego is only a thought and beginning to disidentify with it, you'll find that the habit of thinking of yourself in those terms is pretty strong and pretty subtle. But that's the practice. You're becoming better at distinguishing that which is a projection of the mind and not actually yourself. And as you do that, there'll be a greater and greater sense of freedom, and this will not be a problem anymore. Right? So the ego isn't something you can get rid of. You can't. Right? It is simply that's part of the functioning of the nervous system. You can't get rid of it any more than you get rid of blinking or digesting food. It's simply the way, in order for somebody to function, thought, emotion, and sensation have to form a pattern. If they don't form a pattern, there's nobody there. Everything is just conditioned energy. The sense of self is the same thing. It's just not you. Consciousness liberated realizes that it is not what it thinks it is. The thought you hold of yourself is not what you are. That's the liberation. And that can start in an instant and grow and grow and grow. And sometimes there'll be these moments of incredible expansion, just suddenly, bam, it's gone. So, does that answer your question, my friend? So when you say they coexist, yeah, I mean, there's nothing there. The ego is not a thing, right? It's not self-aware. It is not sentient. It is simply a pattern of thoughts. So I often refer to it as the robot, right? It's a very good likeness. It speaks as if it's somebody, but there's nobody there. Does that help? Haroon says, great satsang. I got a lot out of it. Several potholes narrowly avoided. Very good. That's my job. I'm really good. I've got a great map of potholes because I've fallen into pretty much every one of them. Because I was so arrogant for a long time, I thought I could just do it on my own. Really, brother. I've got the scars. I've got the scars to prove me wrong. So yeah, pothole management, pothole maps. That's probably my new title. Pothole cartographer. There we go. That makes it sound more dignified. Shanti says, geez, sorry, removed the message. Just couldn't express it in words. I'll just listen. Thank you. Oh, welcome. Mark White, message retracted. Okay, Mark White, you said let this work develop naturally. I think I've rushed it and it sets me back a bit. I've collapsed back into the mind and body recently. I'll take my time now. Thanks, GP. God bless. Yeah, notice that sense of wanting to drive forward. That's the egoic mind. That's what Buddha said was the essence of suffering. This sense of what's next. Nisargadatta referred to it as the tyranny of what's next. Because notice the underlying assumption is I'm not that, and that enlightenment is something I'm going to attain. Well, that is a hamster wheel. That will have you chasing after something forever. You have the perpetual seeker. You haven't really collapsed back into the mind and body. You simply did not understand the nature of the mind and body and how it functions. Right? Understanding its nature, you go, oh, I am that conscious awareness perceiving the mind and the body. I'm not in it now. I never was in it. I'm never going to be in it. There's no place I need to get to. This is a recognition of the truth right now. Now notice the difference that feel that has. Oh, I am that. Now I'm living from that. I'm not living to attain that. If I live to attain, I have postponed to the future my happiness. I have made now a stepping stone to that, which means all I experience in this moment is suffering, the imaginary absence of the thing that I have been pursuing. Just simply recognize, it's here now. And then when the doubt comes up and fear, because the mind, no, it isn't, because the mind, our habit is that we're looking at for a particular form to say, I've got it. That habit is just a pattern of the mind. You're it. You are what you are looking for. The thing you are looking for is where you are looking from. And so all of the doubts, I'm not getting it, it's all the future, I've fallen back into the mind of the body, is the mind. Don't have to pay any attention to it. It's not telling you the truth. It's got it all wrong. It thoroughly believes it. It sounds very convincing. For a lot of people, it's, well, of course, I'm not enlightened yet. Well, that makes enlightenment something to be attained. It is a recognition of what already is. Just stay there, abide there. That's your true self. Consciousness is the true self. Enlightenment is nothing but the true self. The Bodhisattva is simply the true self. The Buddha is the true self, your true self. The self you are now. It's not going to be true. Because if it was going to be true, then it's false now, and then it's true later, but then it could be false again. That's not truth. Truth is true now and forever. So this is the truth. Ves, this is great. Greetings from Norway. Thank you. Thank you, Ves. Greetings to you. LFC Dilek. Hi, GP. Great explanation as always. As I understand, we are all the same awareness manifesting in different forms. As awareness is self-aware, it doesn't make sense that to say a table is self-aware too. There's a subtle mistake in that. People say, well, then everything has consciousness. This vase has consciousness. No, nothing has consciousness. Consciousness has everything. Yes, the table is consciousness made manifest. Absolutely. The table is not something that has consciousness. The table is consciousness. What you experience is being experienced by consciousness, in consciousness, and is made of consciousness. Consciousness is all there is. Awareness is it. It is the substance of everything. So the thing doesn't exist independently of consciousness. All you are experiencing is consciousness. Consciousness in its dynamic manifestation, which is me talking, flowers growing in life, and consciousness in its essential form, its essential essence, which is pure formless beingness. So it's a subtle mistake that people make. Oh, everything there in the universe then is conscious. No, it's not. Everything in the universe is in consciousness. There is one consciousness, and everything is a manifestation of that. So if you ask your question, then is a table consciousness? Is this vase consciousness? Is this stool consciousness? Is this petal that just, or the flower that just fell consciousness? Yes, the answer is yes. Is it something that possesses consciousness? No. That would make it an object. That would make a many. That would make a thing of which consciousness was an attribute. This is consciousness. And consciousness is what's looking at it. And consciousness is what it is. This may make your mind spin a little bit good. Your mind can't get this because this is pure non-duality, the oneness of subject and object. And therefore, the mind cannot grasp it because the mind is nothing but the description of one thing in terms of something else. It is dualistic by nature, as is language. So that's of no use. Knowledge is of no use. A normal definition of knowledge is absolutely useless here. This is just a place where you simply go to this, right up to this doorway, the boundary, the borderline of the mind, and you just sit there. That's how you basically knock at the door. Let's see, he goes on, or she goes on, not sure which. I suppose an object can't be self-aware, just awareness itself, and only that can be self-aware. Sorry, just been thinking it through. No, you're right on the money. Yes. Only awareness is aware. Right? Right? What else can be aware? And how many awarenesses can there be? There are two awarenesses. So the awareness that's sitting here, awareness that's aware of, the lights and everything around me, and the awareness that's listening to me are the same awareness. The space in New York and the space here in Seattle is the same space. Take everything out of it, and what do you got? It's the same space. The consciousness that manifests as what we call you and what we call me is the same consciousness. There's only one awareness. It's kind of self-evident. And is something other than awareness? So when people say that I am aware, it's close, right? But it's not the actual fact, because who are you then? Is awareness an attribute of you? Well, then who are you? When you really push this to the limit, you find that only awareness is aware. I am obviously aware, self-evidently aware, therefore I must be that awareness. I am that awareness. There's nothing else I can be. There's not something else aware of me. I am aware. Therefore, I am the awareness. I am that. And that awareness is all there is. And the sense of being a finite, separate self can just dissolve into that awareness. The awareness which you obviously are. Mark White, your teachings are so soothing. Thank you so much, GP. God bless. Well, thank you, Mark. That, I like that word, soothing. It is my fulfillment of my bodhisattva vow. For me, that's the highest ideal, to alleviate, eliminate suffering through wisdom. Not just, patch stuff up, but through wisdom. Through the ultimate wisdom of self-knowledge. The ultimate self-knowledge is that you are the pure awareness. The pure awareness is Buddha nature. It's exactly what Buddha is talking about. A lot of Zen and the Buddhist practice have actually started to adopt some of that language, which is not used as much in Buddhism, and they have, because it's beautiful language being adopted more from the Advaita tradition. Chrissy gives me some namaste to you, Chrissy. Anne says, where does law of attraction fit into all of this? Any value in it? Yes. Yeah. Kind of nice. This ties the whole thing together, because right at the beginning, I had a question about the Buddhist levels, and we talked a bit about going through the 10 bodhisattva levels and that sort of thing. The teachings on law of attraction represent a particular level, and when you look really close, you'll find that those teachings are very much confused with basically reductionist materialism. It's an attempt to kind of liberate consciousness from being strictly in matter, but it's very much, the feet of law of attraction are very, very much stuck in the mud of materialism. And of course, if you see the way it's promoted, and it's all about prosperity and wealth, and it's the ideals of materialistic culture. There's nothing spiritual about the approach to it. And so it represents a lower level of teaching. I mean, if somebody's down here really stuck in victimhood and the like, it's a big step forward, right? It's a big step up. Ultimately, it's you kind of, and in fact, I focused on it when I did level 1 of inner reconciliation, because it was a way in which I could begin the process of bringing somebody further along into the spiritual aspect of it, and out of the mere desire to fulfill your human wants, which are pretty much egoic until they become examined. Law of attraction without spirituality becomes a field day for the ego. As a matter of fact, I had a question. Let me bring it up here really quick, that somebody emailed to me. Let me see if I can find it here. Where'd you go? Yes. She said, this is, her name was Larissa Kamela Deve. Beautiful. She said, I listened to 2 short YouTube videos of your presentations of Advaita Vedanta and loved them very much. And this is why I accept the invitation to ask a question. Would you kindly clarify why many spiritual seekers have an idea that they will be able to manifest or create desired objects or conditions when the identification with the body-mind will drop and realization will come that the I am God, Ishvara? It always sounds to me as totally incorrect understanding of the teachings, but somehow I cannot find proper words to explain to my friend, to myself, that our true nature does not do anything. When I'm trying to say it, the objection is, but on the way to realize the I am and absolute, I will pass the stage of identifying with impersonal I am, which is God. So I will be able to manifest whatever I want. Please help me to understand that subject more clearly and why misunderstanding happens. Thank you so much. Thank you again for your great and very clear teachings. My favorite masters are Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi. I happen to be fortunate enough to have many openings and stories, even hours when I thought I was completely gone, only functioning was remaining. So I know for sure that personality of I thought is a phantom. Love and peace was great. Respect and best wishes, Larissa Kamela Deve. Wow, thank you. Beautiful. That says it in a nutshell. The thing that's misunderstood is that when you're identified with the egoic mind, right, even though some awakening is taking place, you're on your seeker, you're on the path. You want to disidentify with that and identify with and realize who you actually are. Not even identify, be that, right? Recognize that which you have always been. The idea that as you're moving along, you're going to be identified and you're going to see yourself as totally free, you'll be able to manifest anything you want, is a projection of the egoic mind on enlightenment. if you look at the great masters, Ramana Maharshi, Buddha, uh, um, Nisargadatta, Muji, Shankara, Atmananda, Papaji, they did not have these great city powers. They did not manifest things. Miraculous things took place around them, but they didn't have that. You see, the desire that you want to manifest disappears with the sense of identity. And so there's instead this total surrender and openness to whatever happens. So there's no you there anymore that's trying to manifest something. This is how the thing gets confused. We project on enlightenment that somehow the you that you think you are is going to become enlightened, and now it's going to be able to manifest whatever you want. It won't happen. Michael Brown put it nicely. He said that when the awakening takes place, you do get the power to say unto the mountain, be cast in the sea, raise up and be cast into the sea. He said the thing is that you also realize that the mountain is fine right where it is and you don't do anything. Excuse me. What I would recommend is to not worry about that, not worry about what it's going to be like. When you get to China, just go to China. Take the trip and see what happens. There are some cases where some people do develop city powers. Robert, my goodness, I just completely slipped my mind. So he was a student of Ramana, an American. Yeah. Robert Adams. Is it Robert Adams? Yeah, it was Robert Adams. City powers. Lester Levinson became an awakening. All sorts of city powers. So it does happen. But the masters that I look to the most, not. They don't. And they have no interest in it. But what I would simply say is get there and then find out if you care. And if you do, we'll talk about it. So I hope that helps with the conversation. In essence, it's really a distraction from the issue, because let's say it does happen and you can manifest or whatever you want. You're still in the process of discovering who you are, so that the you that is manifesting what they want is actually you. And at that point, there's no desire to manifest, because what is there to manifest? You already one with everything. You are everything. What is there for you to bring about? Now, the manifestation that takes place is more like, listen to a good improviser in jazz or blues or something, right? It's just happening. They're not deciding what they're going to manifest. It's just happening totally spontaneously in the moment. They're just totally flowing with the moment, and the magic is happening. The music is writing itself as it goes. That's a much better way of looking at it than somehow there's a me that's trying to manifest something. So I hope that answers your question there, Camilla. And also, get back here, my folks over here as well. Okay, yeah, got that one. So I hope that answers. Yeah, that's it. Anne, yeah, she was doing that. LFC says, thanks, GP, wonderful as usual. Barbara says, brilliant, GP, thank you. Anne says, what role does our little inner child play in all this and healing of the past? It's a model. All of the psychological techniques, like the inner child and stuff, are a model. They're a way for us to allow ourselves to experience the traumatized energy that's running throughout the system. It's one way of many. It's a good one. It's very, very useful. We can think of it because the traumatized energy, can get traumatized when we're very, very young. And so sometimes this traumatized energy can't even talk because it was traumatized before you had language. So it can feel very infantile, very, very primitive, and that's all okay. But all it is, there's no real inner little child in there. There's just parts of the development of the wholeness of the human being have simply been stunted at a certain point, and so it's stuck. The energy is stuck there. When a trauma takes place at a certain point in our life, as far as that traumatic energy is concerned, it's still in that point of your life. Nothing has changed. It's been frozen. It's literally in suspended animation, right? So you may have some energy inside of you that still thinks it's 1963 or 1982, right? Whatever. This is its nature. You know, to understand that, and there's a variety of models to get to it. Inner child being one of them. Inner reconciliation is the way I do it. I have no problem referring to it as an inner child. In some instances, if I'm working with some people, that's the metaphor that I use, because they'll get a picture in their mind of a little child. You go, okay, well, let's welcome her or him into the scene and see what they have to say. This is the way energy expresses itself, and then eventually can let go of that, mature very quickly, and reintegrate into the wholeness of you. So I hope that answers your question. Keep reaching forward, and I don't need to have all these over here. All righty. Well, I think that'll do it for today. Once again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for helping out. Those of you who have been donating on Patreon to help me offset the expenses, I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. It really does help. I am starting to look for a place where I can do this live and have an audience and kind of have a regular nice setting for satsang, as well as do some other live events and classes and the like. So again, anyone out there in the world who is who would like to help me put something together into your community, maybe a meetup group, we can do it on Skype or live. If I can get enough people there to to make the trip, then I by all means do it. So GP live at gp.com, gpwalsh.com. Couldn't get gp.com. Tried gpwalsh.com, and we'll get the email. And we'll try to. I'm setting stuff up already for 2019. I've even already got the retreat in Canada all set up for July of next year. So thank you all for being here. I'll take this last question. AK 1020 says, in my experience, so many things come to me. I see, hear, and feel things. How can I separate the things that are not me from me? Oh, very good question. Are you talking about like psychic things or paranormal things or just experiences, just feelings and stuff you're having, empathic kind of things? No matter what they are, when you realize that you are the one having the experience and not what's being experienced, you can first remove all the fear, even though you're still not really clear which ones are really for you and which ones aren't. You can remove the fear, because first off, it's not essential that you know, right? Because you are that which is aware, right? So you just start with that, right? That'll take the fear out of it. Then you can begin, at that point, without the fear, it becomes curious. You become curious about the thoughts and feelings and experiences you have, rather than just, right? Rather than just wanting to know so that you can get rid of them because they're intimidating to you. You now become empowered. You turn around and go, well, this is interesting. Why this? Look, all this weird stuff is happening. And I'll tell you, the more spiritually aware you come, I see it's happening all the time. People going through inner reconciliation training, there's becoming all sorts of odd stuff starts happening. Taken back at first, and then realizing that how much more interesting and mysterious the universe actually is. When we're not afraid of it anymore, it suddenly becomes this incredibly amazing playground, and a whole different version of you begins to emerge, where you clearly see what's you and what isn't. You become very solid and centered in a sense of being yourself. And then all the really weird stuff, really unusual stuff that can come will be interesting and curious and an enhancement of life and not a threat anymore. So he adds just the experience of normal things. Well, even just same thing with normal things, right? The problem isn't the normal things. The problem is we're intimidated by it. We're afraid. That's all. Without the fear, imagine what life is like. All of these things become enormously interesting. So, Lucy says, loved you all. Dr. Damien, thank you, GP. Really great. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, not sure which. Well, Dr. Damien. So it could be a last name. It's a first name, it's probably a guy. Could be a last name, though. Haroon, which I'm now saying correctly, and I will from now on. Eric says, thank you. Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. Well, that's it for today. That's it for this week. I will be back next Sunday, as always. And I'm also trying to work out the technology so that I will actually be able to take calls. So I'll be able to talk to people as well. Probably not going to happen in the next week or two, but eventually. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all. Thanks for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for helping me on Patreon. And I look forward to next week. I love you all. Bye.